What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ. This is Out of Bounds, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the NFL PrizePicks board for this weekend's NFL Conference Championship games. We got two games on the slate. First game is going to be the Green Bay Packers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, followed up by the AFC matchup, Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills. So let's get right into it and start talking about some of the injury news that we need to be on the lookout. So the first one is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kansas City Chiefs running back. He's questionable with hip and ankle injuries. His status is to be determined. Patrick Mahomes, we already know that he suffered a head injury against the Cleveland Browns. He's questionable as of right now. He's still in the concussion protocol. His status is to be determined. Running back Zach Moss for the Buffalo Bills, he's out due to an ankle. He's going to be out for the rest of the postseason. Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiver Antonio Brown, he is questionable with a knee injury. They're considering the injury minor, and his status is still to be determined, so keep an eye out on Antonio Brown's injury. Sammy Watkins questionable with a calf, status to be determined once again. A.J. Dillon, running back for the Green Bay Packers, suffered a quad injury. He's questionable, and status is also TBD. Deion Yelder, Tyler Ervin, not really so worried about those two guys. Shouldn't have any impact on the game. One other bit of news that I wanted to talk about real quick is the NFL forecast. It looks like there could be some snow in Green Bay, which may make things difficult for Tampa Bay, more so than I would say Green Bay. Tampa Bay, obviously, they play in warm weather. I live down here in Tampa, so right now it's like 60, 70 degrees, sunny, clear skies, but that won't be the case in Green Bay. You'll have Tampa Bay versus Green Bay, and it looks like there's going to be some snow flurries. So it looks like snow's fairly likely at this point. Plenty could still change. Latest models are showing temperatures in the 20s, light winds, and 1 to 3 inches of snow total on Sunday, both before and during the game. Snow in general often looks more impactful than it really is. With light winds, I would expect both offenses to be operating at near peak efficiency despite any snow. It's important to remember that if we see any accumulating snow, which is possible even with the heated field, of course, Green Bay, they have a heated field, if you didn't know that, the defenders need to run on the snow too, and the advantage in snow could actually trend toward the offense. So there you have it for Tampa Bay, Green Bay. And if we look at the other game, Buffalo at Kansas City, it's green, which means that there will be some rain, but it's already going to be cleared before kickoff. Light winds, temperatures around 40 degrees, pretty much perfect weather. So now that we got all that out of the way, we can start talking some projections over on PrizePicks. And we'll start with Tom Brady, the GOAT. He's projected for 21 points against Green Bay. That game kicks off at 3:05 p.m. on Sunday, in case you were wondering, for the NFC Championship. Tom Brady over on Roto Grinders, we use the DraftKings projections for NFL PrizePicks because DraftKings and PrizePicks are the most similar. The difference between DraftKings and PrizePicks scoring system is with DraftKings, let's say Tom Brady throws for 300 yards. Well, he gets a 3-point bonus on DraftKings. On PrizePicks, he does not get that bonus. So that's the big difference. And the same applies to running backs and wide receivers. If they go over 100 rushing yards, if they go over 100 receiving yards, they'll get a 3-point bonus. They don't get that on PrizePicks. So no yardage milestone bonuses over on PrizePicks. Anyway, they have Tom Brady as a slight under at 20 points versus Green Bay. Let's take a look at some of his recent game logs. 22 against New Orleans in the last game, 22.16. And then his previous game against the Washington football team, he had 23. And then to end the season, 31, 29, and another 23. So he's been at that 22 or more fantasy point number on all 5 of his games, which makes it kind of a situation where maybe taking the over on this 21 is a good look. We know Brady came from New England. He's used to playing in the snow, although he's been in Tampa Bay for quite some time now. And, he joked around saying that his blood is thinned out. So maybe the snow impacts Brady since he's been down here working out and playing in this Florida heat. But if anybody can adapt and adjust, it would probably be Tom Brady. So based on what I'm seeing here, guys, I would probably consider Tom Brady to be a favorite for the slight over. And then if we look at the game totals here, Green Bay's projected to score 27 points. They're the home favorite, while Tampa Bay is projected to score 23.5. So there you have it on Tom Brady. Let's talk the other side of the ball, though. Aaron Rodgers, who is playing out of his mind, lights out, quite possibly the best quarterback in the playoffs. 23.5 is his projection. We saw what he could do against tough defenses. He faced the LA Rams last week and really didn't seem to be bothered whatsoever by Aaron Donald and company. His projection this week is 21.66 against the Buccaneers. Let's open up his game logs and take a peek at Aaron Rodgers' recent performances. 25.54 in his last one against the Rams. We already talked about that. Very good game there. 26 against the Bears. 26.14 against Tennessee. 30.9 against Detroit. And 23.5 against Philadelphia. Now, you can see, guys, that he's won against two defenses that are very tough defenses here in his first two playoff games and still put up 25.54 and 26. Buccaneers are another tough defense. They did give Rodgers fits the last time that these guys played, but that was all the way back in week 6. So if we go all the way down here against Tampa Bay, you could see Rodgers only put up 5.8 fantasy points. But to say that will happen again is probably inaccurate, because if you look at all the rest of his game logs, all the rest of his games were 27, 23, 28, 26, 23, 25, 23, 30, 26, 26, 25. The guy's not going to put up 5.8 points again. Will he struggle? Will he have a tough time? Is this a tough matchup? Absolutely. But look, the guy's faced tough defenses in his past two games and has shined 26 and 25. I mean, hard for me to bet against Aaron Rodgers right now. I really, really like him. I think that the over the 23.5, it'll be tough. It'll be tough, but I think he can do it. I think he can do it. The projections think that he's going to go under. So this is going to be up to you guys. I'll leave this one up to you, but I'm not betting against Aaron Rodgers right now against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. You do with that what you will. Let's move down to the next game and talk the two quarterbacks that might be lining up under center. I say might because we're not sure of the injury status on Patrick Mahomes yet. Of course, he sustained the head injury. They're calling it a concussion. I don't know if he got concussed or what. I mean, he got like whiplash from what it looked like. But we'll start with Josh Allen. We know he's healthy. Struggled a little bit last week, but this could be a situation where he bounces back. He's projected for 24.5 points going against Kansas City. That game kicks off at 6:40 p.m. On Sunday. Josh Allen over on Roto Grinders, they've got him projected for 24.58 points. So you got to keep in mind, as I mentioned at the top of this projection breakdown here, if you think Josh Allen's going to throw for 300 yards, well, you got to take 3 away from his projection of 24.58, right? Because you don't get the bonus on PrizePicks. So in reality, this might be more like 21.58 PrizePicks points instead of 24.58. So 21 instead of 24 because of the 3-point bonus difference. Let's look at his game logs real quick. I said he struggled in his last game, and I was right. He scored just 12.54 fantasy points there. We go back to his first playoff game here against Indianapolis. He did break 300 yards, so if we knock 3 points off of this 32.36, he ends up at still 29.36, so a very, very healthy total there. This game against Miami, he did not play a full game there, but still lit it up, 20.26. If we go back to New England, December 28th of last year, he had 32.3, but did break 300 yards. So this would actually be 29.3 PrizePicks points. And then finally, his last game against Pittsburgh, he had 19.32. So Allen didn't have a great game last week, but this could be a game where he bounces back in a big way. Roto Grinders, they like him to do 24.58, which would be just enough to get him over this 24.5 if we're talking about that. But they're pretty much on the mark, guys. This is pretty much a tie. I think PrizePicks has this projection nailed down pretty good here. And we'll look at the game totals. Kansas City 28.25, Buffalo 25.25. This could change. This line could change quite a bit if Pat Mahomes is cleared to go and he's ready to play. Speaking of Pat Mahomes, he is currently projected for 25. And, I like that number, pending that he's healthy and ready to go. So let's take a look and see how he's done. They like him for 26.87 over on Roto Grinders. So again, If you think he goes over 300 yards, well, you got to take 3 off of that total and bump him down a bit. But let's look at his game against Cleveland. Obviously, didn't finish the game, but for the time that he was in there, he was 21 for 30, 255 yards, 1 passing touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown. So 21.6 points there in limited game time. Did not play, obviously, against the Chargers. They benched him there. 20.22 against Atlanta. 26.86 against New Orleans. And then going back here, 21.62 against Miami. So there you have it on Mahomes. Obviously, we don't need to go into great detail about how good Mahomes is and what he's capable of. I mean, this is a matchup here that I'm not afraid of against Buffalo. Buffalo hasn't been one of like the best in the league against opposing quarterbacks as far as, a team that we want to fade quarterbacks against. So if Mahomes plays, I do like the over, I think, on the 25 on Patrick Mahomes. But that's going to do it for quarterback. Let's scroll back up to the top of the board here and talk running backs real quick. Some good names to consider. We will start with the first one on the list, which is Leonard Fournette. Now, this one's tricky because Leonard Fournette, he did have a pretty decent game last game against the New Orleans Saints. But we also have to keep in mind that Ronald Jones is now back in the lineup. So that's going to play a factor here in Leonard Fournette's projection. He is projected for 12.92, which would put him over his projection over on PrizePicks. Let's open up the game logs real quick. Last game, 21.7. Great game for Fournette. Ended up getting 17 carries, 63 yards, plus was targeted 6 times, caught 5 of them for 44 yards, and had a receiving touchdown. So big game there for Fournette. Game before that against Washington. Washington, pretty good against the run. We know they got a good front line, a good defensive line, and still put up 19 carries for 93 yards. Had 1 rushing touchdown, was again involved in the passing game, securing 4 targets for 4 receptions, 39 yards, no touchdown there. So he's been doing a little bit of everything on the ground, through the air, pretty involved for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. But we do, again, have to keep in mind that Ronald Jones will be healthy and will be taking part. If we look at Ronald Jones real quick and see how big of a factor he was in the last game against New Orleans, well, he did have 13 carries for 62 yards, was targeted just once in the passing game. So as of right now, Fournette is the running back 1, Ronald Jones the RB2. So keep that in mind when rostering Fournette. A little bit of a concern there when considering the over on Fournette and his 12.5. Other side of the ball, though, Aaron Jones, talking about a running back timeshare or splitting carries. Well, the Green Bay Packers seem to be doing more of that these days, splitting work between Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and the A.J. Dillon, the guy we mentioned at the top of the show in the injury report. He's dealing with a quad issue. But Aaron Jones is the top running back in this Green Bay Packers backfield, so he's projected for 17.57 fantasy points. Again, Tampa Bay, a very tough run defense. They do rank pretty well here against the run. They rank number 1 against the run. So not an easy matchup. But hey, when you talk about the final 4 teams in the NFL playing on Sunday, well, none of the matchups should be an easy one. I mean, they're all pretty good defenses to make it this far, right? Well, if we look at his last couple, 18.3 versus the Rams, who is also a very tough team against the run, but he did manage 14 carries for 99 yards, broke off a really long run in that game, ended up with a rushing touchdown, and secured 1 target for another 14 yards, which helped pad his final stat there. And then against Chicago, another tough defense, had 11 carries for 42 yards, another rushing touchdown, which really helped his day, and then ended up securing 5 targets for 4 receptions and 43 yards. So another game of 18.5 against 2 tough defenses here. So there you have it for Jones. They like the over. I would probably lean toward the over too. You got to play these game scripts out in your mind and think, what is going to happen? How do I see this game playing out? Do I see the Green Bay Packers and Buccaneers, that game staying relatively close to where they can't, abandon the run, where Aaron Jones stays involved in the run game? Or do I see this game being a blowout on one side or the other? Can Tampa Bay build a huge lead against Green Bay? and force Green Bay to abandon the run and start throwing it a bit more, or vice versa. Maybe Green Bay builds a big lead against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay can't use Fournette as much as they want in the run game, so they turn to Rojo in the passing game or something. So you got to play out these different scenarios in your head. Come up with how you think the game plays out, and then take your overs or unders accordingly. So let's move on to the next running backs on the board. And we've got Devin Singletary, not a very sexy pick. He hasn't been very involved for this Buffalo Bills run game. He's projected for 9.9 points. We already talked about Zach Moss, the guy who was chewing into Devin Singletary's production all season long. Well, he's going to be out for the remainder of the playoffs, including this game. 9.9 is the projection for Singletary. They like him as a big over on Roto Grinders. 14.87 points. Let's take a look at his recent game logs and see why they think that he can go for over 14 points, because that seems a bit high to me. I mean, when's the last time the guy put up 14 fantasy points? Well, looking at the game logs here, I would say never. I don't think he's ever reached 14 points. So why would I think that he does that in this game versus Kansas City? I have no idea. Are they suddenly going to abandon Josh Allen's right arm and Stefon Diggs' receiving abilities? Are they going to abandon that and just go to the run game? Well, I think that'd be kind of dumb if they did that. Pat Mahomes plays, I can promise you that Kansas City's going to put up some points and that they won't be able to establish the run with Devin Singletary. So that's how I'm approaching things. But yeah, I see no reason here to think that he's going to go for his projection of 14 unless there's something that I'm missing, something that I don't know. That seems awfully high for Devin Singletary. Now, I will say this, Kansas City doesn't rank very high, very well against the run. Their rushing defense ranking just 31st in the league, but come on, guys. They've lived and died with Josh Allen's right arm. I mean, if he's not throwing the football and putting up points through the air or, rushing the ball himself, he's a touchdown vulture. We know that he'll cut into Devin Singletary's upside. I mean, I just don't see where Singletary, gets close to his 14 projected points on Roto Grinders, unless he falls into the end zone a couple times. But, I think Josh Allen's more of a rushing threat around the red zone than Devin Singletary is. So that's kind of a weird one for me. And then we don't have a Kansas City Chiefs running back on the board to talk about. So that's going to do it for RB. Now let's talk wide receivers. First one we need to talk about is Mr. Mike Evans. Number 13 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is projected for 13.5 points on PrizePicks. So let's go back over here to Roto Grinders. We will filter out all positions except for wide receiver. Now, Mike Evans, he faced Marshawn Lattimore last week, his arch nemesis, his rival, and Lattimore did a pretty good job shutting Evans down other than a short touchdown catch for Evans. He's projected for 15.95 fantasy points, which puts him right up there at 16, I would say. So we'll call it 16. Let's open up his game logs. As I mentioned, targeted just 3 times, caught 1 ball for 3 yards and a touchdown. Prior to that, faced Washington, put up 17.9 points, was targeted 10 times there, hauled in 6 of them for 119 yards. So he did break 100 yards. So if we take 3 off of this, well, he's not at 17.9, he's at 14.9. So you got to keep that in mind when I look at some of these game logs here. We've got to do some quick math. But there you have it for Mike Evans. Let's look across the board here and see what we like. I mean, as far as pass rank, where they rank against the Green Bay Packers defense, where they rank against the pass, well, they're not very good. I mean, most of the time you can pass against this Green Bay Packers defense. So I don't mind the matchup here. He is projected to be seeing a lot of Jair Alexander, Green Bay Packers top cover man. So if that's the case, I expect Jair to do what Jair has done most of the season and shut Mike Evans down. But that's how we're looking on Mike Evans. They like the over on Roto Grinders. I don't know. 13.5 is a pretty good number. He might get right around 13.5, or if Jair shadows him all game long, take the under. DeVante Adams, 22 is his projection. probably the best wide receiver on the board, either him or Diggs. Adams should have a pretty decent matchup here. The biggest worry is that he'll be faced up with Carlton Davis, which he is projected to face. Carlton Davis, Tampa Bay's top cover man, no doubt about it. They've got DeVante Adams at 22.01, so it looks like they've nailed the projection. PrizePicks and RotoGrinders agree. They think Adams will go for around 22. Let's look at his game logs. 21.6 against the Rams, 16.6 against Chicago. If we go back here even further, Tennessee, he had a 43.2 game, 24.5 versus Detroit, and 34.1 versus Philly. So we know what kind of monster DeVante Adams can be. Can Carlton Davis stop him? I don't think so. I think Aaron Rodgers and DeVante Adams are probably the best combo, the best 1-2 punch quarterback receiver in the entire league. And I don't think Carlton Davis is going to be able to stop this man. I really like Rodgers and I really like Adams this week. So I would probably say either fade this because they have a pretty good projection up on PrizePicks right now, or may want to even consider taking the slight over on Adams. But that's just how I'm approaching it. Let's talk Chris Godwin, the other half of this dynamic duo for the Bucs. I guess we could call it a trio now, right, with Antonio Brown, but Brown isn't up on the board this week as of now. Godwin, however, projected for 14.5 points. Let's see how they like him on RotoGrinders. They like the over on Godwin. They've got him at 16.65. I'll say this about wide receiver. Out of like quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, I think wide receivers and tight ends are probably the hardest to predict. I like taking quarterbacks on PrizePicks. I like taking running backs on PrizePicks. I think you just get a better idea of kind of what they're going to do on a game in, game out basis. So a lot of the times I don't take these receivers unless I feel like I've got a really, really strong hunch or an edge somehow. That's how I approach picking different positions on PrizePicks. But his last game against New Orleans, 7.4 points. So a big down game for him. 18.9 against Washington, 30.3 against Atlanta, 19 against Detroit, and 13.6 against Atlanta there. So had some pretty good games here. Definitely fell off the wagon against New Orleans, but New Orleans is a tough defense, guys. We shouldn't take anything away from the New Orleans Saints. They made it a tough game against the Bucs. Fortunately for the Bucs, their defense played probably better than the Saints, forcing Breeze to throw 3 interceptions and helping Tom Brady with some great field positions. So he's expected to match up against Sullivan, which, I'm not really worried about that matchup either. Jair Alexander is the guy. So I don't know if Jair is going to be shadowing Mike Evans the entire game, or if he's just going to stick to one side of the field and cover whoever's lined up on the outside or on that side of the field. But Jair Alexander does give me some cause for concern. We won't talk Allen Lazard. I don't expect him to be a very popular play. MVS, we're going to skip ahead here and talk about Stefon Diggs. A lot more excitement here with Stefon Diggs. 21.5 is his projection. He did it again last week, guys. If you watch that game, Josh Allen struggled, but Stefon Diggs still ate. He still got his. Well, this week against Kansas City, he's projected for 21.28 points. If we open up his game logs and look at what he's been up to, killer, straight killer. Against Baltimore, tough defense, 24.6 points. Against Indianapolis, 24.8 points. Now, we do have to take 3 points off of these totals because of the bonus, so 21.6 and 21.8. We go back, limited game time against Miami, he had 14.6. Against the Patriots, he had 38.5, so 41 minus the 3. And then against Pittsburgh, he had 26.1. So he's just been straight killing it. The only game that he's went under 20 is the game that he didn't play all 4 quarters. So I really, really like Stefon Diggs. He's been ultra consistent. He's been somebody that we can trust. And this matchup, not one that we're really worried about. Kansas City ranking 16th against the pass. I feel pretty good here about Stefon Diggs. He is going to be facing up with Bashad Breeland. But, man, Stefon Diggs is matchup proof. Don't let that persuade you to take, the under on Diggs or to fade Diggs. 21.5 is a tough projection, though. So I would probably lean toward the over and hope that this game shoots out and that Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs continue their hot streak and keep it going for another week. Moving right along here, Cole Beasley, John Brown. We'll take John Brown. We'll talk John Brown real quick. Brown, he's projected for 12. Let's see where they like him here on Roto Grinders. They got him at 12.72 if we open up his game logs real quick. 14.2 in his last one against Baltimore, but this one here against Indianapolis, he was targeted 4 times, didn't do anything with those targets, had a goose egg. So it was like feast or famine between these two games here for John Brown, 14.2 and then a 0. If we look at across the board here, we already talked about this matchup with Kansas City, not a difficult one, not one that we're looking to avoid. And then Charvarius Ward is the guy who is most likely to cover John Brown. John Brown, he's a deep threat. We know he can shake loose and get vertical real quick. He would be the type of guy where he catches like one big touchdown and pretty much just hits the over for you. So if you think John Brown can wiggle free and get loose downfield, take the over on John Brown because he's got that type of home run hitting potential. So there you have it on Brown. Let's back up just a sec. Let's talk Tyreek Hill, the other side of this game here. Kansas City's #1 wide receiver. He's projected for 20 points facing off against Buffalo. Obviously, a lot of this Tyreek over or under is going to depend on if Pat Mahomes is the quarterback or if it's Chad Henne. I'm going to just assume that Patrick Mahomes is going to be okay and they're going to find a way to get him in the game and allow him to play. So if that's the case, I don't mind this projection of 20.91. Let's round it up to 21 for Tyreek Hill. Let's look at his game logs real quick. His last game, again, not a full game with Pat Mahomes under center. He still managed 19.9 points. Going back here against Atlanta, he had 10.5, bit of a down game. New Orleans, 17.4. And then against Miami, 26.1. So bit of an up and down season for Tyreek Hill to close out the year and rolling into the playoffs. Again, wide receiver is one of those positions where it's like, you know, you look at targets, which he gets the targets, 14, 15, 10, 7, 10, 6, 10. He gets targets, but you'd like to see him, do a little bit more with his targets. He's got one 100-yard game. So this 19 is really 16.9. So I think he's a little bit too high over on PrizePicks. I think that especially if Pat Mahomes is out, you got to take the under on Tyreek Hill, but I even kind of like taking the under anyway. He is going to be matched up against Tre'Davious White, which is Buffalo's top cover man, top cornerback, so it will be a difficult day for Tyreek Hill. Tre'Davious White is a very good cover corner, so I would lean toward the under on Mr. Hill there. I think that's going to be it for wide receiver. Let's talk tight end here. There's a few names that we must mention. The first one's going to be, let's go Gronk. Gronk, 6.8. I took the over on Gronk, and the reason I did that last week against New Orleans is basically I was banking on Gronk finding a touchdown catch. And that's basically how you have to approach his projection of 6.8. If he hauls in one touchdown catch for you, well, he goes over 6.8. So it's almost like a roll of the dice, a coin flip with Gronkowski. If he catches the touchdown, you're good. If he doesn't, well, it's going to be hard for him to get there for you. They've got him at 6.76 points, so they're pretty much in line with PrizePicks. If we look at his last few games here, 2.4 points against New Orleans. He had nothing against Washington. Against Atlanta, 4.9. Going back against Detroit, 19.8, a huge game there. So he's pretty much a touchdown or bust guy for you. Do you want to play that game? Do you want to play touchdown or bust game? Well, Gronk is the perfect guy for you. If you think he catches that touchdown against Green Bay, take the over and call it a day. The other side of that game, though, Robert Tanyan, he's projected for 10. He is another guy who is pretty touchdown dependent most weeks. His projection this week against Tampa Bay, 9.94. We've seen Tampa Bay struggle against tight ends in the past, namely Logan Thomas against the Washington football team back in the wild card game that Tampa Bay played. Logan Thomas did really, really well. But let's look at Tanyan and see how he's done in his last few games. He had 10 on the money, which would tie him for this week's projection on PrizePicks. Then he had a 9.8, which would be a slight under, 2.7, which would be a big under. Then he had 4 games here where he went well over 10, but he caught a touchdown in each of those games. So he's definitely going to have to catch you a touchdown, and he's going to have to probably get you a little more than that too. Maybe like 2 or 3 catches for 20 or 30 yards and a touchdown. That would put you over the 10. So you're banking on touchdowns from these first 2 tight ends. Going down the list here, we do have another tight end that we have to talk about, the best one on the board, Travis Kelce. Huge projection for him. 20 is his projection on PrizePicks, but we know that this guy is an absolute stud, and he has been feasting all season long, especially in his last few games. Well, in this game, he's projected for 21.49 points, which would be an over on Kelce. And the game logs will show you why I like the over, because he's just Mr. Consistent. 24.9 against Cleveland, 22.8 against Atlanta, 22.8 against New Orleans, 27 against Miami, 27 against Denver. I mean, he's went 22 or more fantasy points in like every game. Almost every game except for 1, 2. So you got to love the consistency with this guy. Of course, as we've talked about before, 109, that puts him over 100 receiving yards. We got to take 3 away. So that would put him at 21.9. And here he would be at 24.6 and 24.6. But what's he need? He just needs more than 20. And I think he absolutely can do that in this matchup. Got to love some Travis Kelce. Other than that, I mean, I think that's going to do it for the video. I don't want to make this thing too long. I mean, we got kickers on the board. If you think that the wind and the possible snow flurries in Green Bay and Tampa Bay, if you think that impacts kicking, that weather could impact kicking enough, well, maybe take the under on Ryan Suckup. Maybe take the under on Bass. Oh, excuse me, not Bass. That's Buffalo's kicker. Crosby, rather. Take the under on Crosby. Maybe take the under on Suckup. 8.5 for Suckup. 9 for Crosby. That might be a way to go if you're looking to get weird and play a couple of kickers. But that's going to be it for today, guys. If you have any other questions, leave them in the Discord. Oh, by the way, link to the Discord is in the description of this video. We're always talking PrizePicks in the Discord. We've got NBA going on in there. We've got NFL, CSGO, MMA, college basketball, college everything. I mean, whatever they have on PrizePicks, we're probably playing it. So definitely join the Discord. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, turn on notifications, share the video, drop comments. I love all of that stuff. You guys have helped this channel hit over 200 subscribers, and I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so very much. But for this one, I'm CJ. This is Out of Bounds. Good luck this weekend. We'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace out.